time for another Zareth.
I love Zareths.
Now, here's the funky thing about this, everyone. This is stuff that many of us have been thinking for quite some time anyway. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that now Blizzard are actually doing it. And you could very much...
Asterisk.
Yeah, asterisk. Because you think about the early story in Cataclysm, where we're like, origination thing, going to blow up, kill everyone. That's not good. You think of Algalon, we're like, all right, fucking the Titan's Clippy has came down and he's going to destroy the whole planet.
He's going to reinstall Windows, sort of out like.
Yeah, right. So the idea of like Titans, big fuck crushing you.
Titans morally ambiguous and uncaring about us, the individual, because they were the uncaring creators who are more worried about the ecosystem being perfect.
Yes.
And cleansing corruption, because they can always, and that's the thing about godly creatures, they can always go, you're fucking nothing, we can just make you again.
What's 10,000 years to me? I'm a piece of space rock with thoughts. So the lore foregrounding, right, of the Titans potentially kind of being dickheads, that's actually existed for a long time, right? It's going to be the specific execution of elaborating on this little voice in the back of one's head when you think about Titan lore. The elaboration of that. That's always the problem with like the classic JJ mystery box, right? Where it's like finding out about the mystery is not as satisfying as the mystery itself and all of the possibilities about that mystery. It's one of the things where like, you think about an author like George R. R. Martin, one of the things that he's generally like done pretty well is like he's had kind of good mysteries that make sense, that generally get resolved pretty well.
Yeah.
That is a decently rare thing.
Yeah.
So with World of Warcraft, there's plenty of mysteries. What's the true nature of the Black Empire? That's one thing. Why do the old gods do what they do? Why does Azeroth sound like Azathoth, the blind idiot god of of Lovecraft? Why is that? Isn't that interesting?
Also, there's an explicit reference to that in Shadowlands.
And
in the theater in Arnwold.
So you think about all of these things, right? And I suppose now we're seeing some of these be elaborated on. So the first thing we've got is the Progress Report Uldoris. Now, Uldoris is a Titan facility that we, of course, will find. And that's a Titan facility that was first hinted at in patch 8.3, I believe.
Yeah, it was his mother talking all the stuff in the chamber.
Yep. Talking about there's Uldoris, there's Uldaz.
Old, there's like a couple more in that turn.
Yep.
Not given full names.
Brother Loken. This is a progress report from within the Titan facility of Uldoris. Brother Loken, as you requested, I offer you the following report on the progress towards our objectives. I'm pleased to say that the halls of infusion are now operational. Through the work of imbuing order magic into the wellspring, though the work of imbuing order magic into the wellspring is only beginning, I remain optimistic that the process will prove effective. Already, we are detecting reduced levels of contamination. I hope your investigation into how Yogg-Saron compromised these living waters will yield answers. In the meantime, we can be assured that the evolution of another Galakrond will not be triggered by consuming unfiltered water. Once purification is complete, an additional benefit will be found in offering the infused water to dragonkind. By ingesting the water, or causing their eggs to absorb its effects, it should be possible to keep even the most willful dragons aligned with the Titans' philosophies. They're putting chemicals in the water that are turning the frickin' dragons.
Yep. Ordered.
Yeah.
Got some Titan fluoride in the water, boys.
That's it.
Yep. Keep those dragon teeth clean.
Our efforts to bring the proto-dragons online have faced resistance, but I'm formulating a strategy to speed the process along. Construction of the facility atop the halls of infusion is proceeding apace.
Oh, yep. Sorry, I'm thinking of a Dragonflight story. Yep.
You're having a...
It's pretty good, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
What the? It's crazy. He's like enjoying games, enjoying WoW things. I don't know what's going to happen. Though the station is to be designated Uldoris, I must reluctantly report that the dragons have taken to calling the structure by the name Tierhold. I will do my best to ensure our Titanforge workforce does not adopt this embarrassing pseudonym. As of late, they seem to be expressing more and more opinions of their own. Uh-oh.
Oh no!
In closing, let me underscore once again how fervently I disagree with the assertions of Prime Designate Odin, considering the unsuitability of the dragon aspects. Of course, Odin's just a total fucking man-child.
Yeah,
Like Odin, and I like Odin being that way.
very accurate to his mythological. Same with Zeus. Same with most gods. Actually, very accurate to their.
A lot of the big
mythological
daddies
ways.
are
Yeah,
a bit of a problem.
pack of bastards. Honestly.
Yeah. I have every confidence that they will prove fervent allies in our shared goals of keeping the world structured and disciplined. Ever your friend, keeper, Tyr. So, basically here, Tyr, this is trying to fill in some gaps, right? Because there is this vast thing the Dragon's Knowledge that we're not aware of. And another thing that I will remind people of is initially the dragons were very frosty to us mortals.
Oh, they didn't like us at all.
Like, they were frosty as fuck to... like say to the Night Elves and the War of the Shifting Sands, frosty as fuck to us at many points in vanilla. Wrath of the Lich King. Obviously, we end up helping the dragons a little bit more because we've got to deal with the blues going just a little bit too fucking dickish.
And Alex needs us to clear out the Ruby and Obsidian Sanctums.
Yep, and it's in Cataclysm that I think things get a wee bit more soft.
The Age of Mortals.
The Age of Mortals.
The Age of Dragons is over, and now the Age of Dragons has started again a couple of years later because we ran out of ideas. Fuck.
So the idea that, like, there could be a little bit more to the dragons, it'll be a bit aloof or whatever, and the same with the Titans. Again, that's been foregrounded in the lore for ages. It just is a question of what will Blizzard actually do. But, and this, we haven't even got to the big edict from Odin himself.
Yeah.
This is just the progress report from Tyr. But even within this, there's a lot that we can begin to pick up.
There's some very, very fun things in here thinking about. I would actually suggest try to keep this in mind if you're playing through Dragonflight, especially like the first maybe zone in a bit. I'm kind of intrigued. I don't know where this book is in game. I need to find out because this shouldn't be in a fucking book. Let me tell you that. Well, okay, it's fine if it's in the book. It just needs to be a little bit more upfront to players because that's one of the things, right? Well, we'll talk about this when we're finished going through them both, but this kind of storytelling can work, but sometimes it can't.
Yeah. It's the sort of thing it can, when combined with the in-game narrative and lore videos available on our YouTube channel, create an overall compelling experience. That is why Legion lore content was pretty much a success for all creators.
Yep.
There was a lot of nice, we can dig deeper into this.
They're an older man, great
Stuff that was going on, and the in-game story also worked pretty well.
Yeah.
So, things to, I guess, go into is, obviously, this is after the Black Empire falls. This is after Galakron has been defeated, and this is during the construction of Uldorus Titan facility, and we can see that the role of this Titan facility is to imbue order magic into the wellspring. What is that wellspring?
Yes.
Okay, right. Well,
Yeah, I would literally start talking about early Dragonflight spoilers, and I would like to kind of avoid that where possible.
fair.
Especially because I think people have more fun if they kind of keep the stuff in
agree.
mind and think it through together. And I want you to have the best experience possible. More or less.
Interesting.
Especially the fact that I needed to know when these were or when these are from is because I don't know what part in the story you're supposed to know them. But they're from Ultiman, which means you're supposed to know them going into Dragonflight, which is very good.
So great. That very much helps us talk about them.
Yep.
Right. So, basically, this is infusing order magic, I suppose, into the general world. Supposedly, removing the contamination that was presented by the old gods. We see that Yogg-Saron was able to basically, contaminate Azeroth in a pretty gnarly way.
Yeah, they're filtering and cleaning up the water.
Yeah. So that idea of, pouring the magics in, we've seen some of that with even some of the transformation of the Dreadlords into the Fel Dreadlords, Death Dreadlords, the Light Dreadlords.
Fusion of magic is becoming a pretty important part of this overall mechanics of the world, generally, I think. Which will be a nut to crack eventually. But, yeah.
Yeah, and then again, the idea of the Titans being, above, which is, it is how the Titan beings will generally feel about themselves, because as far as they're concerned, They were placed there by God.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Ish. I mean, they have more of a context than that, but they're very much like, we are the word from the people who issue the word.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
the just not liking the name Tyrhold, which is
Yeah.
then interesting for Tyr to say, because, Tyr saying every year... It's the sort of thing. Tyr and Odin have quite a few disagreements.
Tyr's a good boy, generally.
Tyr generally is a good boy, so you have to wonder in this progress report, is he actually okay with Tyrhold? Is he saying this because he personally does not like it being named like that because it goes against the order? Or is it just like, that's literally not its name and that pisses me off because I am fundamentally a being of order and I like things to be right?
Yeah, I think it's... What it is doing is... I think it's fundamentally just going, well, that's not characterful. Tyrhold's not... There's a little bit of like ordered and right, but it's almost like machine-like, machination-like.
Yeah.
Because if you think, they always have engines, they always have machines, they always build things like that. So if you were to think about that as a storyteller and start from that perspective of, okay, well, they build engines, they build machines, they're not actually organic creatures. I mean, they are organic creatures, but everything they create is of stone, of mechanical nature. Then you think about, oh, well, what are we? We're, fucking flesh bags full of blood and stuff. Why are we flesh bags full of blood and stuff? Big Yogg.
Big Yogg.
Yogg made the curse of flesh, made us flesh-like. So you could see why the Titans' creations wouldn't necessarily favour us immediately. And you can see
Which makes sense.
You can see how philosophically the Titans might actually have a problem with this. And then you fill that into like Algalon and stuff. And that's all stuff that we knew during Wrath. But it's like, now if they're going to bring this a little bit further on, then that'll be some of the idea of, okay, are they going to try to extend that in any capacity to try and make it look like, oh, maybe the Titans and us aren't best mates? Maybe they aren't just our good, godly friends. Although that would feel a little bit weird with us meeting Amanthil and stuff like that, and that kind of going relatively okay.
Well,
Yeah.
Well, relatively okay because we were helping defeat Sargeras.
Flowers for Algalon. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Edicts of the Prime Designate, volume 742.
Fuck, that's a long read.
It's a lot, yeah.
That's way bigger than One Piece.
And I would say that this is a Dreadlord Infiltration tier, almost Dreadlord Infiltration tier publication. Not humongously,
a little bit.
because basically this is things that we know being reflected by characters that we know.
You're retconning the lore!
And that we know this will be interesting for whenever Odin comes back into the story, which itself could be an interesting thing, and it's why we, this time last year, did a video on Odin. So, Keepers, it has been brought to my attention that, as of late, many have become fascinated by the emergence of mortal beings, that is, creatures born of flesh rather than crafted of stone and steel like our loyal Titan Forged. While my initial response was to eradicate these aberrations before they evolve further, I now believe they may prove useful if properly controlled.
Yep.
Now, some people might think, like, Odin, Norse gods, I like the TV show Vikings. They're all a bunch of crack.
They're all
banter.
a pack of bastards.
But, no,
War.
this is very, very in character with Warcraft Odin.
Yeah.
Like, Warcraft Odin is such an unbelievable thunder cunt. He really is. But in a way that, I think works. It would be pretty boring if the Titans were all perfect good guys who like everything to be perfect and good.
He's a bastard.
So, yet, even as we guide their development according to the edicts of the Titans, we must always remember that mortal minds are destined to be small and incapable of complex understanding. Therefore, as your Prime Designate, I must establish a few minor but necessary regulations to govern your interactions with these nascent beings. Again, this does make sense from their perspective of who they are and what we are. As Matt put it, mortals, for the most part, exist because their mortal enemies willed it so with the curse of
We are
flesh.
not part of the plan, and they're all about having plans.
Yeah. So it's almost benevolent that we don't get completely destroyed, because if the Titans truly were, nothing but ones and zeros, It could destroy us. Although maybe you could say that via the Eye of Aman'Thul and anything that it could have to say about time, maybe it starts to see that we have something special.
Yeah,
You know?
that's
maybe
yeah.
they actually, with the Eye of Aman'Thul, or maybe Aman'Thul himself even knows, and this could actually make sense. Actually, maybe I've just woven. Hang on.
So I don't even want to think about this in the sense of big grand plans.
I have to get it out of my head first.
Go on, go on.
Only way is, okay. Could be. Titans are struggling, right? They have problems. Their brother betrayed them. The universe is full of horrible death and destruction. And it's not shiny and pure like their death and destruction, which is good, they say. And obviously they end up getting totally fucked. Nihilum, which is why all the actual main Titans are I mean, they're not dead, but like they are absolute peanuts compared to what they used to be. So what if, right? So there's a good in Titans, and there is a bit of good in Old Gods. And I don't mean good as in moralistic good. I mean like a positive. So the positive of the Titans are, they're efficient, they're ordered, they get shit done. I'm sure they stand up with their back straight and clean their bedroom. All that shit. Now, what's the good thing about the Old Gods? Well, they're not closed-minded beings. They're open to new ideas. They're thinkers. So, what if what happens is, Aman'Thul, who has this mastery over time, all right, like he's able to show Nozdormu his own death. So what if he starts looking into the future and he starts seeing, oh shit, this is all really bad. And while we are these perfect creations of order, we will not be able to get the end result that we want. What if the reason why mortals are like kind of, and I suppose you could almost go into like a little bit even the Christian philosophy of, like the problem of evil, why is there free will, all of that stuff, right? Where, people are like, I guess from the theology perspective, which I am not at all read up on, like I'm not a Christian, but, it's like the idea that your actions mean something when you've got free will. If, God doesn't make everything so that there is no evil and there is no bad, right? And there's like a little bit of meaning they kind of get from that. Sorry if I bungled that. I hope you understand what I'm trying to go for. So I think about this, and I think about like, okay, are we mortals, in fact, essentially the only hope? Because we are this amazing, unique creation in the Azerothian context, or whatever, right? We're this like fairly interesting creation anyway. That is, and now there are a few holes in this, which I will mention. I mean, orcs are from Draenor. There's one.
Orcs are from Draenor. Sorry.
Sort of the thing is that like Old Gods, they're open to new ideas. They can see many possible futures. They can't choose which one is which. Now, a very interesting thing that Grand Magistrix Elisond notices in the Nighthold. This is where we can see things perhaps actually connect together in a way that could be satisfying.
Someone's trying to tie together a theme. They're doing it really fucking half-assed, but they're trying.
Yeah. Well, it's also something that was literally done in the Alexander raid series in Final Fantasy XIV. A little bit. There's some
ultimately
things...
a different theme, but the only real connection is time and us.
Well, it's like time and fate.
Yeah.
There's like fate stuff that kind of like comes from Alexander-ish.
Yes and no.
Yeah. Well, which I guess
it's more a function of how time is inherently tied to fate in the sense of like, are you always going to do the same thing every time? That kind of thing.
Yeah. So the point is in this, Alysanne, she cannot see us in the future, and it's like a bit weird then because are we, we can be like Order in that we can do what we think is right. we can structure things around us in a certain way, but we're not bound by the orthodoxy of being 100% pure that. We have a bit of the old god spice in us, which, you know, means we can have a beer, we can make a big whoopsie, we can think a bit more creatively about problems.
Yeah, I mean...
And then that is, like, important to things because it's sort of saying that we are those who are, like, without fate in a way.
Yeah,
and
you've got the Kingdoms of Bellular, you've got the Destiny stuff of being paracausal, stuff like that.
That means that we have true agency
Yeah.
in a world that is set up by its makers to go in a certain way. That ties in to the first ones. The reason why it ties into the first ones is after you kill Zoval, Fareem, it's that annoying thing. The Fareem stuff's actually really fun. And then, you know, Zoval appears. But Fareem is basically being like, hang on a second, what if they planned on Zoval happening? What if they planned on there being a... What if that... Oh, shit.
That's the part
And
that I
that's
think
something that's-
fucking sucks. The whole grand planning of everything is really kind of... It's really boring to me that everyone has a grand plan, it all works.
But then the thing is what makes the player characters special is that, you know, for whatever blend of circumstances, we end up being the ones who are not part of the grand plan, who cannot be foreseen, because there is like something a bit more, you know, new about us. And perhaps the Titans have realized, as Odin says here, all right, there's something to these mortals. We're not going to destroy them if we control them. Because the Titans, they can just 3D print. And we've always known this. This is not an anti-WoW thing, even since vanilla WoW. Like, you know that these are the stone constructs of the Titans, right? So they could essentially just, you know, churn out, as you see in Wrath of the Lich King, legions and legions and legions and legions of Titan Forged, right? They can have all of this power to do whatever the fuck they want. So why the hell would they take a risk on us? There's perhaps something about our nature that is relatively important. I perhaps don't mean just us, the player character. I would mean everyone. Now, the issue in this is kind of tricky because not all Azerothian races are from that heritage, not from that lineage.
Yeah, the actual
Night Elves.
the only main characters, if it's ties to Azeroth, or Night Elves and Trolls, more or less. Torn to an extent.
Yeah,
But most everything
also,
else is either from another planet or derivative of
derivative
Titan construct.
Derivative of Titan construct is partially my point, though.
Yeah,
Because
a corruption of Titan construct.
yeah, so why would they choose to keep a corruption of their construct around?
Because we're useful.
Because we're useful.
The only thing
we
I
maybe
would
have some more interesting, unique properties.
The only thing I would say here is relating any of this to Aman'Thul feels like a mistake because
He's a goner at this stage. So
yeah,
maybe
this is Odin, who was basically, oh, the Titans are gone, I'm in fucking charge now.
Yeah.
This is me. So given Odin both as a character in World of Warcraft and historically as a god in mythology, it's very much folly is his problem. He is he's either really fearful or really headstrong traditionally. So if you're coming at this from a writing perspective, using that as a baseline, you would immediately imagine this is going to be folly. This is going to be, oh, these little fuckers, these mean nothing. We'll control them and use them to our ends. Oh, look, they've killed us. That's the kind of thing where Odin would be doing that. So I imagine this isn't, and this is kind of, I'm also trying to steer slightly away from the Aman'Thul as grand planned everything because he can see time, because I think I don't like that storytelling. I'd rather not the possibility be in my head at all. Even
you don't
even
want
the
it
first
all
one's
to be
version.
massive grand plans. You actually want it to be lots of smaller things
Yeah.
that very satisfyingly pull together over time.
Because Shadowlands was two fucking grand plans fighting each other. It
Yes.
was the Jailer's grand plan versus the first one's grand plan.
Which was lame as fuck.
And both of those were like, well, these fucking suck because there's no resolution to this whatsoever. There's no theming of us being the ones who were like, it's all there. It's just, it just wasn't tied together narratively in any sense.
Like-
so I think the idea is like Odin's maybe just going, these are fucking, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah,
and then the whole setup is we are literally special as mortality, because that's the thing that was initially set up with the Titans in Algalon's time. With Algalon, where him going, my calculations were wrong. I didn't think you'd beat me. You did. Maybe you know better than I do. And obviously the Constellars were conscripted. They weren't created by the Titans. so they're a little bit beyond the Titans. Maybe wouldn't fall to the same fallacies a lot of the time, but we're happy to do what they're told. And then that kind of us beating fate, or us beating time, or not being in the calculations. You could technically of Alisand, I mean, you could technically bring in the fact that time magic is inherently arcane and is inherently ordered, and maybe that's where the Void see all the perspectives of outcome instead of, whereas Alisand was using arcane to see time, so maybe they have a way of seeing things that aren't.
Oh, very astute.
Yeah, but effectively speaking, it's like, and this kind of ties in a little bit weirdly with the overall design of the magic in World of Warcraft, because Fel is chaos, but Fel has never really felt particularly chaotic in this sense, in the philosophical sense of order versus chaos. So the idea of just, oh no, this is more going to be order versus void as thing versus chaos, and then how does light tie in? Because light's really heavily ordered. So there's a little bit of there's something weird going on here, unless the ultimate plan is to keep it to then Chronicles kind of non-canon. They're moving around to that. They could maybe bring Illidan back as the fucking Fel person or something.
There's a few things to talk about. I'll eventually get to Sauron, because Sauron actually at the start of the Second Age is like a partially redeemable character. So the whole thing, Melkor and Sauron or Morgoth and Sauron are like fairly different characters in terms of their motivations in Tolkien. Which like can make them interesting, because Sauron was very, order's the top business. I suppose from this, Odin, he believes himself, even if he knows
he's predestined.
He knows that the Titans are not gods. He knows they were made by the first ones, so he knows that shit.
Yeah.
But effectively, he sees himself as like, I am God's fucking will.
Yeah.
I am Odin. Nobody questions me. I am doing what I think is best for our big shared goal. So within that context, even somebody like Odin felt like it may actually be worth keeping us around. I think there's probably something generally quite meaningful to that.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we do have page 3. So this is basically just to catch you up. Basically says, therefore, as your prime designate, I must establish a few minor but necessary regulations to govern your interaction with these nascent beings.
Nascent, interesting term.
So every one of these rules, every Titan character, not Titan, but every, sort of Titan Forged character that we've known, they will have been given this edict. All historical records documenting the advancements of the Black Empire are to be purged. Paint that age as one of chaos and misery, a pernicious blight that we keepers eradicated. With the old gods locked in confinement, there should be no evidence available to contradict our assertions. Surely, if you care for these mortals, you would not wish to see them led astray to darkness. So, essentially here, they're going to be playing up the worst parts of the Black Empire, essentially because, they probably had a few good ideas, because the old god sort of style of things is a bit more fucking chaos reigns, let's go. So they probably did have some forms of advancement. Now, this could go in multiple different directions. Does it mean that the Black Empire is just a massive orgy and everyone's having a great time? Perhaps not. Does it perhaps mean that there are great advancements in power that are discovered via mass blood sacrifice that, lead to some, crazy thing? It could mean that. We don't literally know what it means from this. It does mean that there is more to the Black Empire and that era, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It sort of depends what thing is it, and we don't know. Yeah. Now, he continues to say, second, attribute all accomplishments and works of wonder to the Titans alone. Yep. Despite the relentless arguments made by some of you, this is not a fallacy. After all, can anything truly be said to exist until it has been ordered? Of course not. Therefore, it is irrefutable that the Titans are the source of all creation. So, this is Odin's perspective. Again, think about the Shadowlands. The actual essential nature of the Shadowlands is what you see in the in-between, from what I could tell. The Shadowlands were obviously ordered. Somebody built the realms. Somebody built the Zareths, right?
Apparently all just devourers, allegedly. until order.
So the Devourers are actually there as a part of the first one's design to kind of like keep checking things. The thing is, they kind of like went out of control in a way that is like seen as the end times. And by the way, on that whole fate thing, again, threads of fate. There was quite a lot of like fate breaking.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the notion in Shadowlands to say
the whole thing was that actually that's true, but also not true, because everything is like, oh, things seem to work differently around you. That everything went according to the plan anyway, because that's the part that really annoyed about Shadowlands, because they had threads of fate. Fate seems to be different around you, and this is where I drew all connections of, oh, that's Kingdoms of Amalur. Oh, Steve the Newser worked in Kingdoms of Amalur. Apparently, he didn't actually do any actual core work in that. It was more some narrative direction at the studio at the time. So a little bit less literally, he didn't write it. So he's not to blame for the Tuatha De Danann being an absolute fucking bastardization of Celtic culture. Anyway,
he's lucky he's got off on that one then.
Yeah, so there's a load of stuff. Doesn't excuse Ardenweald at all. Yeah, what do we call trees? What does Welsh look like? Fuck it, hit some Y's and B's and N's. Job's good. But what was I even saying? What was I even talking about?
Oh yes, fate. Yes. About fate.
So Threads of Fate was like, I hear fate's broken. It's weaving weirdly around you. And then later on, it's like, oh my god, you're the true chosen one. Let us examine and infuse your anima, true chosen one, like happened in Korthia. And then the first one's teleport stones, waystones that we were using was because we were the chosen, true fated ones. And then that was never debunked. Everything was like reacting to us because we're special. And we're like, well, what the fuck? But we're also not special because we're special because we broke fate. But then we're also special because we're working completely within it, according to the first ones. Like down to the second plans of when we'd arrive in Korthia and when we'd arrive in Zereth Mortis and when we'd stop the jailer with all the stuff. Fucking cool. Could you pick a side and stick to it, please? But if I were to assume Threads of Fate is an outlier from that, then it is more about how the first ones definitely had plans for us as Azerothians, which implies the whole, and people were talking about this earlier, where it was the mortals, us being mortals, and this is something we talked about a good while ago, where fundamentally the way the story is going, it'll be, hey, we're all six together, we're all the forces, and we're also all of them, and we're also none. Maybe we're the seventh force, maybe we'll destroy the world, but actually save it in the end, because fate doesn't work for us, because we're outside of time in that kind of cool way.
And a bit
so
like,
idea of like that's, yeah.
in Tolkien, the mortality, it's called the gift of men. The whole thing is that like the race of men don't really understand their gift.
Yeah.
In a way.
We just fuck about and do stuff and it works.
And this is what leads to the fundamentalist or whatever sect or group in Numenor. Kind of like almost like rebelling against the gift of men and all of that. Trying to extend their lives, things going darker, and then they of course just get the big Greek island went down into the sea. Atlantis. Yes.
How'd you forget that? That's a Stargate series.
I know, right? Yeah, they got Atlantis to fuck. So yeah, there could be things. There could be things there. As for this, attribute all accomplishments and works to the wonder of the Titans alone.
Hey, we've got that historical revisionism.
Yeah,
cool.
And it's like,
what did the Titans make? What did they not make? Is all the stuff about Draenor being Titan, is that even true anymore?
What's up
is
with
Chronicles canon?
What's up with the Apex of Civilization? So it's the fun thing here where, to be honest, a lot of this is a very sensible expansion of how these Titan sort of created beings would kind of do things and what they would think and how they would think about us. Like these things do all make sense, and that is good. The thing that needs to occur, though, is for it to end up being satisfying in terms of where it's going. So that really means a situation where we play through the story, we enjoy it, we read all of this, it gets us speculating and thinking, where is this going to go? What's going on? How is this set up? Oh shit, they could be doing this. And then they actually have to deliver on the promise of their lore premise.
Yeah.
I suppose. And what's that going to look like? Well, what that's going to look like is a really good patch storyline, a really sick raid, and a really awesome big set of cinematics. They got Astray recently, but the Legion expansion does show us that those things can work. Because in Legion, what they continually did was they satisfyingly dealt with the current plot stuff while then doing a very plausible expansion forward of the story in a way that was rooted in the core character motivations, right? Instead of just like a Sharon is off. See you next week. So the whole thing, you are there, you have the opportunity to close the portal down in the Tomb of Sargeras and the Legion invasion, and then the character of Velen is like, fuck this shit. I've had enough of these goddamn demons in this goddamn plane. So then you go through the portal, and then at the end, Illidan's like, fuck it, big man, you're right. Let's just go destroy their homeworld.
Yeah.
Like that time I did that to the Dreadlords, because I'm Illidan and I'm pretty cool.
Never mind that I destroyed the World of Warcraft equivalent of the Library of Alexandria. Let's not talk about that again.
Fun?
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool little tidbit.
It's very cool.
So that was like a really cool thing, right? Because not only was the scale of those events really big, not only was the scale really big, but for the character of Velen and Illidan, it was like, this is Velen having a meaningful change in a direction.
Yeah.
Velen hardening, being like, after all of this, it's time to stop running. And then for Illidan, it was giving us Illidan. It was giving us what we wanted from a character we haven't seen in a long time. Because Illidan always would be the guy to do that. And that's why it ended up being a really satisfying slice of World of Warcraft lore content. And then you get to the big bit at the end, and it's like, okay, so this is really satisfying for the character of Velen. This, I guess, fair enough, does work for Illidan. It has bucket loads of cool factor. So with all of that stuff, and it also did set up plenty of interesting things going forward. Because, let's think about that. Big sword plonked in the ground. Holy fuck. Like, that's the sort of thing you can only do in a big fantasy setting.
Yeah.
So,
and that's,
fuck yeah, let's do that. Azerite appearing, and that creating, it's like what the fucking, there's the Manhattan Project. You got the Germans trying to secure the heavy water from Norway, right? There's a new, the atomic age is starting to happen. What's this going to mean for the world? What's this going to mean geopolitically when we hammer into our factions? And that's why I felt like the ending of Legion was so well set up, especially those epilogue cinematics where we saw, the spy of the Alliance peering in, seeing all the goblins mining the Azerite. And you look at this and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. And then you see the Battle for Azeroth trailer that Chris Metzen worked on. This is his final project with Blizzard. And you go, oh shit. So you can see how through Legion, satisfyingly opening mysteries, solving some things, and expanding, but all in a way that worked with its characters, and then setting up a really good premise moving forward. Like, you can see how that all was so fucking successful. And then with Battle for Azeroth, the problem with Battle for Azeroth is they tried to do 3 expansions at once, and they went and they did a faction war expansion, never committed to doing a faction war expansion, destroyed a bunch of sort of lore that people really enjoyed in a very quick slapdash fashion, where the character motivations weren't always that clear, and then they set the faction war that people care about off screen, while the player characters go to some new places to secure boats. We can all see why, we can all see how Legion set up had a brilliant escalation of events that perfectly set up for future storytelling, and it is purely that the BFA through Shadowlands era fucked that premise up. Well, that does show us is that Legion style of storytelling can work really, really, really well. Yeah.
It's fundamentally all about how it actually feels to players
in
the end, and that's where you do it with grinding through characters. I can't remember who said it, but someone said something a long time ago in chat, half an hour ago maybe, saying they want mortal affairs to be represented. And that's one of the things is kind of the part that none of this matters unless the world kind of matters. Yeah. And that's where they've been kind of going a little bit wrong with the grand plan of stuff. Where that's why Wrath felt pretty good for Titan stuff, because you spent so much time running around and flying around Titan stuff. You got to see, Frey, you got to see whatever the keeper was. standing. Was it Freya standing in Sholazar?
Yeah.
You got to see all those, and then you got to actually talk to them. You got to see the story of Thorum and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
that
then you get cold weather flying. That's the only thing that lets you exist in this like realm of Titan grandeur.
Yeah, and that all kind of
so satisfying.
Yeah, and that works with like you've got the rep that's on the podium. You've got how like the falling off from those people kind of resulted in all these areas and things like that, and it kind of worked really well. So I think some of the problem is it's hard to see if any of this will be correctly kind of looked at in Dragonflight. And this is my problem, where there's a couple things here from the old Doris stuff that makes sense to me. Like, oh, I can see how you're weaving stuff in the background.
Yeah.
But it's like, to me, I think, unless they do something interesting with patch stuff, I have this weird feeling that this book almost feels like it's too far ahead. In the same way that Grimoire of the Shadowlands arrived, and we're like, what the fuck is all this shit? And then it was like more apparent in Zereth Mortis, but they didn't have time to make it actually land satisfyingly in any sense. Or like, it feels like a little bit like they're cashing or they're writing a check. I'm not sure they'll be able to actually cash with this stuff, because if you have this stuff at the start of your expansion in Uldaman, and then you go way like later on, and it's like the expansion ends and there's nothing to do with Odin, which is, could be, could not be, but there's all the stuff with the Primalists where we have to build those characters and resolve them. We have to build everything here and resolve it nicely. Are they going to be able to do that? Especially because we know what content there is coming. It's that weird part where I feel like the issue is this might feel disconnected to people going through Dragonflight. The older stuff will be fine, because that's literally about dragons. But I feel like the more like, I don't want to say philosophical, but like all the stuff with the Black Empire and all the stuff about the like how Odin feels about life might not be represented. It could be, especially when you bring like Murazon into this later on. Maybe there's a little bit of us, hey, we're going back to the Black Empire for a bit and it looks a bit different. Or, maybe there's something like, hey, the old gods talking to Murazon, they were actually right. Maybe Odin was a big threat or something along those lines. But
by the way, you really need to watch the 2 most recent videos we did in Murazon.
Yeah.
Seriously. And the podcast. That's some big shit. And this is again where all these things could be weaved in well, because what Morazon says in the end of Cataclysm when we kill him is something that actually does quite well align with this. His final line of Amanthul, what I have seen.
Yeah, that's a thing where I would actually, I would almost pull back on saying that, because it's so fucking nothing. Like, you could do anything with him saying that and pull it through.
But that's also the same foundation that the Final Fantasy XIV team had. They did not know nearly as much as people think they knew.
They had some fucking Morse code.
Yeah. But the thing is, they satisfyingly pulled their plot threads together. They did not know about Elpis and Heavensward.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just how it is.
They didn't know about Dynamis and fucking Shadowbringers.
Yeah.
They literally said that recently. Oh man.
Yeah, yet they weave it together and it makes sense.
Yeah. So
and that shows us that any of the things that Blizzard's doing here, all so doable and possible and could be satisfying. The point is, will it be?
That's the thing.
That's the bit.
That's the thing they've always kind of consistently kind of missed, is making sure people know and have the right amount of time with
Outside
this.
of Legion.
Yeah, which is because Legion was all in-game storytelling.
Outside of
Very
Legion.
little of it was, hey, read this fucking book, loser. A lot of it was, this is stuff you already know. Where it's like, this needs to have a lot more time put through it, where we need to see a whole bunch of speaking and talking about we need to like have conversations with Odin. We need to like meet Tyr in some sort of time shit and him say something to us, because there's a lot of, and this is the part that's really annoying. There's a lot of stuff I find in World of Warcraft's deeper lore, a lot of stuff that Denise are doing specifically, that I'm not going to call it very smart, but it's definitely way smarter than the setting and their ability to execute is.
It's neat. It's cool.
Where
sometimes.
It tries to be. It's like a lot of it is very. How do I describe this? It's very Babby's first philosophy kind of writing, in a sense. Where like, yeah, so you're weaving together a couple different influences from. Here's philosophy book A. Here's your like fucking pulled out of your.
I mean, that's half a JRPG. That's half a JRPGs in anime, and people fucking love that shit.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because a lot of the time that's actually as a core theme, as opposed to here's lore running in the background.
It's the committing.
So one of the things is this very much is lore running in the background for World of Warcraft, which is kind of like super deep world building, but it doesn't feel like a very well executed story when they kind of try to pull it in out of nowhere, where like it all technically kind of makes sense. It's just, it doesn't make sense the way players are trained or decided to give a fuck about.
I guess what I would say is, as long as the A plot up until the end of Razageth, the first raid boss, as long as that's grand, I'm okay with this being here as some lingering questions and things that we're thinking about. But it must be satisfyingly continued, like Legion did. Legion was strong because it had all of that world. You know, Legion had a simple story and sometimes like some neat, expansive world building. And that's why it felt like it was a satisfying story and a grand adventure. I think that's exactly what players want from an IP like Warcraft. So, anyway, we do have the Titans putting chemicals in the water that are turning the frickin' frogs gay, as we've
real study, by the way,
as we've covered over here.
It was more complicated than turning them gay. It was actually hermaphroditic, and the dude who did it was offered loads of money to cover it up, and he didn't.
Pog?
Yeah.
Naughty boy.
Yeah.
That is the funniest thing out of all of that is that that's actually one of his few things that sort of like was actually a thing instead of like a total crackpot sort of lunacy thing.
Indeed.
So we've got, speaking of cover-ups, Saronite, steel beams. We've got Odin, rewriting truth, right? So we've talked about how he wants to rewrite the book on the Black Empire, being like, nope, Black Empire, awful, shitty, lie about its accomplishments.
Titans did it all.
Which means the Black Empire accomplished things. We don't know what they are yet. And then they got stopped. So what were they trying to do? Where was that going?
This is where the annoying part about...
Hang on, I'm recapping so I could push forward. Okay, sure. I probably should continue. Then him just talking about saying, hey, all this good shit, Titan shit. That's what you say. Third, do not share knowledge of the first ones. Mortals could not conceive of the wonders that the makers granted to the Titans in Zareth Ordis. Does make me wonder, are the Titans first amongst the the successors to the first ones? And I think that there is a chance that they kind of could be. I think there's a chance that they're almost... I don't know. I think there's something there that means they're maybe not all equal.
Nope, they're not the first. They're not the first. Because...
Oh, no, I don't literally mean the first. I mean... Well, I guess it's weird, no, because probably it's the case that the first ones created all the shit, and the reason why the Titan architecture looks like first one architecture is because as beings of order, they somehow looked...
The Titans were...
to the first ones and modeled themselves after that.
Okay, well, I need to brush up on my Norse mythology, but you can tell I've been playing fucking God of War recently, but a lot of the... like Odin, a lot of the Aesir god stuff in God of War is very much based on the fact that Odin showed up and was like, it's a lot of cool stuff. I'm the All-Father. I made it all. It's mine. Or like, what about the giants? What about the Vanir? What about all these other like mythological creatures that are literally like better than you or older than you or whatever? He's like, no, fuck it. They're all mine.
I'm fucking Odin, bitch.
I made it. I made it. Prove me fucking wrong. Fight me, motherfucker. And that's the idea of just, if we're to keep that running through as theme for Odin, then the Titans would likely be the last ones made by the first ones. Because what are you going to order if nothing else exists? What do you do? What do you do when you're getting all your say you're making something as a blacksmith, as an example? You don't just go, right, time to start making, and you have no shit.
Yeah.
You go get all your shit, and you go right now to make. You order things at the end. So I have a funny feeling the Titans were like the last ones made, and they just went,
have you ever heard of Sauron?
We'll control all this shit. But yeah, well, we'll just, this all this shit it's mine now. It's ours. If anyone says otherwise, fucking kill them. They're ours. So I think that's most of it.
Yeah, so thirds do not share knowledge of the first ones. Mortals could not conceive of the wonders that we are granted in Zereth Ordis. Learning of the progenitors would only confuse them. It is enough that mortals know the Titans brought order to the cosmos and that they are owed deference. Ooh. While some among you would prefer to argue these points further, such debate can no longer be tolerated. I remind you that I speak with the authority of the Titans, and any further dissent may cause me to question whether you have succumbed to outside influences. Remember, life is chaos. It must be controlled. Your leader, Prime Designate Odin. Beware the eyes of green! Is a thing from an old god, from Il'gynoth, I think. Life is chaos. It must be controlled. Now, this is all quite fun because in the Dreadlord document, life is like the fucking insidious one.
Yeah.
Because like you're growing and stuff. And life is chaos. It must be controlled. That makes total sense from a Titan. I mean, they set up petri dishes like Sholazar Basin and Ungoro Crater whenever they go so that they can create life. So essentially, this is just painting a picture of the Titans here setting things up with, from their perspective, healing Azeroth.
Tyr's a good boy following orders, and Odin is a big villain, and actually seemingly written quite well as a villain in terms of how this is presented.
Yes.
It's pretty nice motivation stuff for a villain. It's very good as, obviously I was talking about the themes were taken from real Odin and from God of War Odin and all the different forms of Odin over different readings of mythology, but it is fundamentally Odin's a bellend, and he thinks he's the Prime Designate. He was put in charge, so he thinks he's fucking big dick captain of the world, when he's really just an asshole, as we all know from his dealings with Helya.
As Entertainment Nihilist said, remember, Aenar is the life binder.
I mean, that's the thing, binder, yeah. That's the thing where I remember thinking that years ago, like, oh yeah, life binder. You don't bind things. I mean, that's Alexstrasza.
I mean, this is the perfect image from donuts. Plants will grow anywhere they can, even in cracks and stone.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
you look at a pavement made of fucking concrete, and a root in a tree said, "No fucking bother, we will pummel you."
Yeah, that's
life finds a way.
Yeah, literally does. That's the philosophical nature of life, as people have seen it over the years. It will persevere, it will find, it will adapt. There are ways. That's why you've got all of those grand ideas. Like,
that's our big slice of lore. Ultimately, I think all of this stuff, it's just what I said about Legion. Look, all of this, good fun world building, well at work, depends on if they've learnt stories or learnt lessons on how to tell their stories throughout the expansion. At least we could potentially think that maybe this is an expansion that will not only have 2 major content patches, rather suspiciously, and maybe we'll actually get a full story and not lots of bizarre cut content like with Drust stuff and other aspects of previous expansions.
Yeah. It's a fun thing where I actually think that this is... I might need to read a little bit up on some Titan history and a couple bits of dialogue from different Titans over the years, but generally speaking, I think this is a very good drawing all of it forward.
Yeah.
I very much like the characterization of people here, because obviously Tyr always was good boy. So the interesting version of him being, I'm a good lad following orders, maybe my orders aren't that good. Maybe there's a little bit of, well, I can't imagine Tyr will be an actual character unless we do some really crazy time shit with Morizond. I can imagine him being, just because a big model with a big silver hand would be fucking cool. Especially if he has dialogue to give to Holy Paladin going, what the fuck is that? Well, why is that called the silver hand? That's not my hand. What the fuck's going on? Use Tyr's, what's it called? The Paladin ability, the shield, big propel one. Do that, and he's like, what the fuck is that? That'd be cool. But I kind of got distracted. But mostly it's like, I can see this stuff actually being very good background work. It just needs to be actual good foreground work as well. Which, that's the... of the 3 parts of MMO storytelling, where you've got background stuff, you've got side content stuff that's kind of happening in the world, and you've got foreground stuff, it's your A-plot. The only part that I don't like about Dragonflight so far is the foreground, the A-plot stuff. Maybe that'll be slightly better once we can do. Yeah, it's not even this as simple. It's very kind of fucking slapdash in a way.
There could be more, and it could be doing more. The side content's been generally better.
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Well, yeah, we'll say there's some of the mortal affairs in Azeroth still could be cleaned up a little bit. But in terms of how that feels for new characters we're meeting, where they put the focus, that's good.